Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his forehead as he cleaned his rifle for the third time that day. The firing range on Station Kepler 7 was quiet except for the hum of air recyclers. He had been teaching new recruits how to shoot for 15 years, but lately, there were no new recruits to teach. The station sat on the edge of human space, watching for threats that never came. The rifle clicked as Jake checked the chamber one more time. Everything had to be perfect. Even if no one was watching, he maintained his standards. His hands moved with practiced ease, breaking down the weapon and reassembling it. The familiar motions helped him think. Suddenly, red lights flashed throughout the firing range. The alarm system screamed its warning into the metal corridors. Jake dropped his cleaning cloth and grabbed his sidearm. His training kicked in as he ran toward the command center. "What's the situation?" Jake called out as he entered the main control room. Commander Lisa Brooks stood at the central display, her face tense. Long-range sensors picked up something big. Unknown vessel approaching fast. Lieutenant Amy Carter worked at her station, fingers flying over the controls. "It's not matching any known ship designs, Commander. The hull looks organic." Jake moved closer to the display. The image showed a ship that seemed to grow rather than be built. Smooth curves replaced sharp angles. Living tissue appeared to cover metal framework. He had never seen anything like it. "Distance?" Brooks asked. 2 hours out at current speed, Carter replied. "They're slowing down, Commander. It looks like they want to talk." Brooks turned to Jake. "Get your weapons ready, Sergeant. We don't know what we're dealing with." Jake nodded and headed back to the armory. He selected assault rifles, sidearms, and ammunition. His hands shook slightly as he loaded magazines. After years of peace, real danger had finally arrived. The communication system crackled to life throughout the station. A voice spoke in broken English with strange clicking sounds between words. "Human station. We ask permission to dock. We are Kithera. We need help." Brooks grabbed the microphone. "This is Commander Brooks of Station Kepler 7. State your intentions." "We flee from E-destroyers. They consume everything. We have young. Need safe place." Jake returned to the command center carrying extra weapons. The main screen now showed a clearer image of the alien ship. It was beautiful in a way that made him uncomfortable. The hull seemed to breathe. "What do you think, Commander?" Carter asked. Brooks studied the display. "They're asking for help. That doesn't sound like an invasion force." "Could be a trick," Jake said. "Make us lower our guard." "The ship shows no weapons," Carter reported. "And they're broadcasting distress signals." Brooks made her decision. "Grant them permission to dock at Bay 3. All security teams to stations. Sergeant Morrison, you're with me." An hour later, Jake stood in the docking bay wearing full combat gear. His rifle felt heavy in his hands. Behind him, 6 other soldiers waited. The alien ship had attached itself to the station like a living creature bonding with its host. The airlock hissed open. Jake raised his weapon, then stopped. 3 figures walked through the door. They looked like large cats that had learned to walk upright. Golden fur covered their bodies, and their amber eyes reflected the station lights. The largest one wore what appeared to be living armor that shifted colors as it moved, but it was the 2 smaller ones that caught Jake's attention. They were clearly young, maybe children. Their eyes were wide with curiosity rather than fear. They looked at everything with wonder, including Jake's rifle. The large one stepped forward. "I am Elder Zara of the Kithara. These are my offspring, Pip and Nix. We thank you for shelter." Brooks lowered her weapon. "What are you running from?" Zara's fur darkened. "The Devourers, metal beings that eat worlds. They destroyed our home. We escaped, but they follow." "How many ships?" Brooks asked. 12 large vessels. Many smaller ones. They turn living things into fuel." Jake watched the 2 young aliens as their elder spoke. They seemed fascinated by human technology. Their eyes kept returning to his rifle. One of them, the smaller one, tilted its head as it studied the weapon. "What can you offer in return for sanctuary?" Brooks asked. Zara gestured to her armor. "We have biotechnology, living machines, healing systems, knowledge, and what do you need from us?" "Weapons," Zara said simply. "Our tools are meant for building, healing, growing. We have no experience with war." Brooks exchanged glances with Jake. "We'll need to discuss this. Lieutenant Carter will show you to quarters." As the group prepared to leave, the smaller young alien approached Jake. It pointed at his rifle and made questioning sounds. "He wants to know about your weapon," Zara translated. "Pip is curious about how human tools work. Jake looked down at the young alien. Something in those amber eyes reminded him of his nephew back on Earth. Curious, intelligent, eager to learn. It's called a rifle, Jake said slowly. It shoots projectiles. Pip made more sounds. Zara smiled, showing sharp teeth. He asks if you would teach him. Jake felt Brooks watching him. Military protocol said no. These were aliens, possibly dangerous, but looking at Pip's eager face, Jake saw only a child's curiosity. Maybe, Jake said, if your mother says it's okay. Zara's amber eyes studied Jake carefully. You would teach a Cathera cub to use human weapons? I teach anyone who wants to learn to defend themselves, Jake replied. Brooks stepped forward. We'll discuss this later. Right now, let's get you settled. As the aliens left with Carter, Jake remained in the docking bay. He looked at the organic ship attached to their station. Everything was about to change. For 15 years, he had prepared soldiers for a war that never came. Now war was coming to them, and his students might not be human. He checked his rifle one more time. The familiar weight felt different now. Tomorrow, he might be teaching aliens how to use human weapons. The thought should have scared him. Instead, he found himself looking forward to it. The firing range would be busy again. Jake stood at the firing range entrance, watching two young aliens examine a practice rifle. 3 days had passed since the Kithra arrived, and Pip and Nix had spent most of that time following him around the station. Their curiosity about human weapons seemed endless. No, Jake said gently, moving Pip's clawed hands to the correct position. Hold it like this. The stock goes against your shoulder. Pip chittered excitedly and adjusted his grip. His sister Nix watched carefully, her golden ears twitching with concentration. Both cubs learned faster than any human student Jake had ever taught. Lieutenant Amy Carter appeared in the doorway, her face showing disapproval. Sergeant Morrison, what exactly are you doing? Jake straightened up. Teaching basic weapon safety, ma'am. These are alien civilians, not military personnel. Regulations clearly state, with respect, Lieutenant, Jake interrupted. Regulations don't cover our current situation. Carter crossed her arms. Commander Brooks wants to see you. All of you. Jake set down the practice rifle and led the cubs toward the command center. Pip and Nix walked on either side of him, their movements fluid and quiet. They reminded him of hunting cats even when just walking down a corridor. In the command center, Commander Brooks was examining a holographic display with Elder Zara. The display showed what looked like living computers, their surfaces pulsing with soft light. Ah, Sergeant, Brooks said as they entered. Elder Zara was just showing us Cathara biotechnology. Zara gestured to the display. This is a bioprocessor. It grows rather than being built. It can heal itself and adapt to new tasks. Brooks nodded appreciatively. Impressive. But Lieutenant Carter has raised concerns about your informal training sessions. Jake glanced at Carter, then back at Brooks. Commander, these cubs have natural abilities that could be useful. Their reflexes are incredible. That may be, Carter said, but they're not soldiers. They're children. Pip made a series of clicking sounds. Zara translated. He says human children learn to use tools. Why should Cathera cubs be different? Because weapons aren't tools, Carter replied firmly. Nix spoke up, her voice higher than her brother's. Zara listened, then turned to the humans. She says the devourers will not care that they are young. They will consume cubs the same as adults. The room fell silent. Brooks studied the two young aliens, who looked back at her with serious amber eyes. What exactly have you been teaching them? Brooks asked Jake. Basic safety, how to hold a rifle properly, simple targeting. Nothing advanced. Brooks turned to Zara. And you approve of this? My cubs must learn to survive, Zara said. Your weapons work differently than our tools. If Jake teaches them, they live. If not... She left the sentence unfinished. Brooks made her decision. Continue the lessons, but keep them basic. Safety first. Carter started to protest, but Brooks held up a hand. Elder Zara, I'd like to learn more about your biotechnology. Perhaps we can help each other. Over the next few days, Jake developed a routine with the cubs. Mornings were spent on weapon safety and basic maintenance. The cubs' clawed hands needed different grips, so Jake modified practice rifles to fit their anatomy. Remember, Jake said as Pip cleaned a rifle, always check the chamber first. Pip nodded seriously and followed the procedure perfectly. His sister watched, memorizing every step. Both cubs treated the weapons with respect, understanding their deadly potential. In the afternoons, Jake learned about Kythera abilities. The cubs could communicate silently through patterns of light in their fur. Their night vision was perfect, and their hearing could detect sounds far beyond human range. We hunt in packs, Nix explained in broken English. Together, we are stronger. Jake began incorporating pack tactics into their training. Instead of individual marksmanship, he taught them to work as a team. One would spot targets while the other fired. They coordinated naturally as if reading each other's minds. Captain Ron Murphy, the station's tactical officer, often watched their sessions. One afternoon he approached Jake after training. "Those cubs are something special," Murphy said. "Their spatial awareness is off the charts." "They're natural hunters," Jake agreed. "They just needed to learn our tools." Murphy studied the modified rifles. "What if we combine their abilities with our technology? Create hybrid systems?" Jake considered this. Like what? Targeting systems that work with their enhanced senses. Weapons that interface with their biocommunication. That evening, Jake discussed the idea with Elder Zara. She examined his sketches with interest. "This could work," she said. "Our biotechnology is adaptable. It learns and grows. Could you create living targeting systems?" Jake asked, "Perhaps, but we would need to understand your weapons better." Jake spent the night thinking. The cubs were progressing rapidly, but they needed more than basic training. The Devourers were still out there, getting closer every day. The next morning he presented his idea to Commander Brooks. "I want to create a joint training program," Jake said. "Combine human weapons training with Kythera biotechnology." Brooks raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "The cubs have abilities we can't match. Enhanced senses, natural teamwork, incredible reflexes, but our weapons are more effective than their tools. Combine them and you get something new." "And dangerous," Carter added. "Everything about our situation is dangerous," Brooks replied. "What do you need?" "Access to the biotechnology lab, permission to modify weapons, and formal authorization for the training program." Brooks looked at the tactical display showing the empty space around their station. Somewhere out there, the Devourers were coming. "Approved," she said. "But I want regular reports." Jake smiled and headed back to the firing range. The cubs were waiting for him, practice rifles in their hands. Their amber eyes showed eagerness to learn. "Today we try something new," Jake announced. As he began explaining advanced targeting techniques, Jake realized something had changed. The cubs were no longer just curious children learning about human weapons. They were becoming soldiers, preparing for a war that was coming whether they were ready or not. The firing range had become a classroom where two species learned from each other. And Jake was beginning to understand that his students might soon become teachers themselves. The modified rifle felt different in Pip's hands. Elder Zara's biotechnology had grown into the weapon, creating living targeting systems that responded to his enhanced senses. When he aimed, the rifle seemed to know what he was thinking. "Try the moving targets," Jake instructed from behind the firing line. Pip squeezed the trigger with his modified grip. The practice round hit the center of a target moving at full speed across the range. His sister Nix cheered, her fur flashing bright yellow with excitement. Jake smiled. 2 weeks of intensive training had transformed the cubs from curious children into skilled marksmen. But marksmanship was only the beginning. "Now we work on tactics," Jake announced. He activated the holographic training system, filling the range with simulated enemy positions. "Remember what I taught you about suppression fire?" Nix nodded eagerly. "Keep the enemy hiding while your partner moves." "Exactly. Pip, you take the left flank. Nix, provide covering fire." The cubs moved with fluid grace that amazed Jake every time he watched them. They communicated through rapid flashes of bioluminescent patterns across their fur, coordinating their movements without speaking. Pip ghosted between cover positions while Nix kept the holographic enemies pinned down. Her rate of fire was perfect, enough to suppress, not enough to waste ammunition. When Pip reached his position, his fur flashed a brief green signal. Both cubs opened fire simultaneously. Every holographic enemy fell within seconds. "Outstanding," Jake said. "But remember, real enemies won't stand still." Captain Ron Murphy entered the range carrying a data pad. "Sergeant, we need to talk." Jake called a break and approached Murphy. The tactical officer's face was grim. "Long-range sensors detected something," Murphy said quietly. "Scout ships, possibly Devourer. They're still far out, but they're coming this way. Jake felt his stomach tighten. How long do we have? Maybe 2 weeks. Maybe less. Murphy glanced at the cubs, who were examining their rifles with serious concentration. Are they ready? Jake watched Pip carefully cleaning his weapon while Nix practiced reload drills. They're learning fast, but 2 weeks isn't enough time to become soldiers. It might be all the time we have. That afternoon, Jake increased the training intensity. He taught the cubs about crossfire patterns, flanking maneuvers, and squad-level tactics. Their natural pack instincts adapted quickly to human military thinking. In human military, we call this fire and movement, Jake explained, using a holographic battlefield display. One team fires while the other moves. Then they switch. Elder Zara watched from the observation area with Commander Brooks. Both leaders were discussing something in low voices. The cubs learn your tactics well, Zara said, but perhaps they can teach you something in return. Jake looked up from the display. What do you mean? Show him, Pip, Zara called out. Pip's fur began to change color, displaying complex patterns that shifted across his body. Nix responded immediately, her own fur showing different patterns. They moved to opposite sides of the range without speaking a word. Silent communication, Zara explained. Perfect coordination. No radio signals for enemies to detect. Jake stared in amazement as the cubs demonstrated pack hunting techniques adapted for human weapons. They surrounded holographic targets with deadly precision, each knowing exactly what the other would do. We could integrate this with our tactical systems, Brooks said thoughtfully. Captain Murphy nodded. Create hybrid units that combine human strategy with Kithara coordination. But first, we need to understand our enemy better, Brooks said. Elder Zara's expression darkened. The Devourers are ancient machines. They consume organic matter for fuel and metal for construction. They have no mercy, no fear, no hesitation. What are their weaknesses? Murphy asked. They think like machines, Zara replied. Logical, predictable, efficient. They do not understand creativity or chaos. Jake had an idea. That's where human unpredictability comes in. We don't always do the logical thing. Especially in combat, Murphy agreed. Sometimes the crazy plan is the one that works. Over the following days, Jake developed new training scenarios based on Devourer tactics that Elder Zara described. The machines moved in formation, used logical attack patterns, and relied on overwhelming force. They expect enemies to behave rationally, Jake told the cubs, so we'll do the unexpected. He taught them unconventional tactics using misdirection, creating chaos and attacking from impossible angles. The cubs' natural agility allowed them to implement strategies that would be difficult for human soldiers. Nix learned to use sniper rifles from positions that should have been impossible to reach. Her enhanced balance let her fire accurately from narrow ledges and cable runs. Pip specialized in close combat, using modified shotguns that worked with his natural pouncing instincts. He could appear from cover, eliminate targets, and disappear again before enemies could react. You're not just learning to fight, Jake told them during a break. You're learning to think like warriors. The cubs listened intently. Their amber eyes held intelligence that grew sharper each day. What makes a good warrior? Nix asked in careful English. Jake considered the question. Skill is important, but not the most important thing. A good warrior protects others. A good warrior knows when to fight and when not to fight. And when the fight comes, Pip added, a good warrior does not run away. That's right, Jake said. But remember, being brave doesn't mean being stupid. Sometimes the smart thing is to retreat and fight another day. Elder Zara approached them. The biotechnology integration is complete, she announced. Your weapons now respond to Kithara senses and human tactical thinking. Jake examined the modified rifles. Living components had grown throughout the weapons, creating symbiotic systems that enhanced both accuracy and reliability. These are beautiful, he said. They are tools of survival, Zara corrected. Beautiful or not, they must work when needed. Captain Murphy joined them with the latest sensor reports. The scouts are closer than we thought. Maybe 1 week. Jake looked at the cubs who had overheard the conversation. Their fur showed determined patterns of gold and red. Then we finish their training this week, Jake said. After that, we find out if they're ready to be warriors. The firing range alert system activated for a practice drill. Red lights flashed as the cubs moved to their positions with weapons ready. They were no longer the curious children who had arrived 2 weeks ago. They were soldiers now, ready or not. The Devourer scout ship looked like a metal insect against the starfield. Jake watched it through the observation window of Defense Platform 7, his modified rifle ready in his hands. Beside him, Pip and Nix checked their weapons one final time. "Remember what we practiced," Jake said quietly. "They're machines. They think logically. Use that against them." Nix's fur showed calm blue patterns. "We understand, Teacher Jake." The Cubs had insisted on calling him that after their first week of training. Jake still wasn't comfortable with the title, but there was no time to argue about it now. Commander Brooks' voice crackled through the communication system. "All units, this is command. Enemy scouts are probing our defenses. Engage only if they attack first." Jake keyed his microphone. "Platform 7 ready, command." The Devourer ship moved closer, its sensors sweeping the platform with visible beams of light. Jake had studied the intelligence reports Elder Zara provided. The machines were gathering data, analyzing weaknesses, preparing for the main fleet's arrival. "Contact," Lieutenant Carter reported from the station. 3 more scouts coming in from different vectors. Jake watched his assigned target through the scope. The ship was sleek and functional with no wasted space or decoration. Everything about it spoke of cold efficiency. Suddenly, the scout ship launched something small and fast toward the platform. "Incoming probe," Jake announced. "Taking defensive action." The probe struck the platform's hull and began burning through the armor. Jake could see mechanical components extending from the device, sampling the metal. "They're testing our defenses," Captain Murphy's voice came through the comm. "All platforms, weapons free." Jake took aim at the probe and fired. The hybrid weapon responded perfectly to his intentions, the bio-targeting system guiding the round with deadly precision. The probe exploded in a shower of sparks. The Devourer scout ship immediately turned aggressive. Weapon ports opened along its hull, revealing particle beam arrays that glowed with hostile energy. "Here they come," Jake warned the Cubs. The first energy beam missed Platform 7 by meters, superheating the armor plating. Jake felt the platform shudder from the near miss. "Nix, take the shot," Jake ordered. The young Cathara raised her sniper rifle, her enhanced senses tracking the moving target. The bio-integrated scope showed her exactly where to aim. She squeezed the trigger. The armor-piercing round struck the scout ship's weapon array. The particle beam died as internal systems failed. The ship began evasive maneuvers. But its logical movement patterns were exactly what Jake had prepared the Cubs for. "Pip, left flank, pattern 7, Jake called out. Pip moved with fluid grace to a secondary firing position. His modified assault rifle chattered as he laid down suppression fire, forcing the scout ship to adjust its flight path. "Got him," Nick said calmly, and fired again. This shot penetrated the scout's main hull. Atmosphere vented from the breach and the ship's movements became erratic. Jake watched through his scope as mechanical repair systems tried to seal the damage. "Target the repair systems," he instructed. Both Cubs opened fire simultaneously. Their coordination was perfect. Each shot placed exactly where it would cause maximum disruption. The scout ship's repair efforts failed and secondary explosions began tearing through its hull. "Scout 1 is down," Jake reported. "Platform 7 secure." Similar reports came from the other platforms. The human Kithara teams were proving devastatingly effective against the mechanical scouts. But Jake knew this was just the beginning. "Command, this is Platform 7, he called. "Recommend we relocate. They'll have our positions now." "Negative, Platform 7, Brooks replied. "Hold position. Long-range sensors show the main fleet arriving in 6 hours. Jake felt his stomach drop. 6 hours wasn't enough time to prepare for a major assault. "Copy that, Command. Platform 7 holding position." He turned to the Cubs who were already reloading their weapons. Both showed the calm focus he had tried to teach them, but he could see tension in their amber eyes. "How do you feel?" Jake asked. "Ready," Pip replied immediately. "Scared but ready," Nix added more honestly. Jake smiled grimly. "Good. Being scared keeps you alert. Just remember your training." Over the next few hours, more scout ships appeared. Each engagement taught the humans and Kithara more about their enemies. The Devourers were fast and well-armed, but they followed predictable patterns. They couldn't adapt quickly to unexpected tactics. The Cubs' natural abilities proved crucial. Their enhanced senses detected incoming attacks before human instruments registered them. Their silent communication allowed coordinated responses without revealing tactical information. The machines learned slowly, Elder Zara observed during a brief lull. She had arrived on Platform 7 with additional bioammunition for the hybrid weapons. That's their weakness, Jake agreed. They can process information quickly, but they can't think creatively. Unlike cubs who hunt in packs, Zara said, watching Pip and Nix work together to set up overlapping fields of fire. The main fleet arrived like a swarm of metal locusts. 12 massive harvester ships emerged from hyperspace, each one larger than Station Kepler 7. Smaller hunter vessels spread out around them, moving in perfect formation. All units, this is command, Brooks announced. Here they come. Remember your training. Fight smart, stay alive. Jake checked his ammunition count and looked at the cubs. They were no longer the curious children who had arrived weeks ago. They were warriors now, ready to defend their new home. Just like practice, he told them, except this time the targets shoot back. The first wave of hunter ships approached Platform 7. Jake counted 20 targets, all armed with energy weapons and mechanical precision. Nix, pick your targets. Pip, suppression fire on my mark. The cubs moved to their positions without hesitation. Their hybrid weapons hummed with bioenergy, ready for the fight of their lives. Remember, Jake said as the hunters came within range, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for everyone behind us. The cubs' fur flashed acknowledgement patterns. They were ready. The real battle was about to begin. The Devourer flagship filled Jake's view screen like a mechanical mountain. The massive ship bristled with harvesting arms and weapon arrays, its hull scarred from consuming countless worlds. Somewhere inside that floating factory was the intelligence directing the entire fleet. Remember the plan, Jake whispered into his helmet microphone. Get in, find the core, shut it down. Pip and Nix crouched beside him in the assault shuttle's cramped cargo bay. Their hybrid weapons were mag-locked to their harnesses, and their fur showed the deep blue patterns of focused determination. Teacher Jake, Nix said quietly, what if we don't come back? Jake looked at the young alien who had become like family to him. Then we make sure our sacrifice means something. The shuttle shuddered as it approached the flagship's docking bay. Around them, the battle raged through space. Human and Cathara ships worked together using tactics no machine could predict. But the Devourer's superior numbers were beginning to tell. 2 minutes to insertion, the pilot announced. Jake checked his equipment one final time. Explosive charges, breach tools, ammunition, and medical supplies. Everything they needed for a one-way mission into the heart of enemy territory. The shuttle's stealth systems had gotten them this far, but once they were inside the flagship, they would be on their own. Docking bay secured, the pilot reported. Go, go, go! Jake led the cubs out of the shuttle and into a nightmare of mechanical efficiency. The docking bay was filled with repair drones and maintenance systems, all working to service the fleet. None of them paid attention to 3 small figures moving through the shadows. This way, Jake whispered, following the route Elder Zara had described. The cubs moved like ghosts beside him, their natural stealth enhanced by everything he had taught them. They avoided patrol drones and slipped past security sensors, heading deeper into the ship. The corridors were utilitarian tunnels designed for mechanical efficiency rather than comfort. Everything was gray metal and blinking lights. The air smelled of ozone and processed materials. Contact ahead, Pip warned silently, his fur flashing amber patterns. Jake raised his fist, and all 3 flattened against the wall. A patrol drone rounded the corner, its sensors sweeping methodically. Jake held his breath as the machine passed within meters of their position. When it was gone, they continued toward the ship's core. The Devourer Prime, the ancient artificial intelligence controlling the fleet, waited somewhere in the central processing chamber. Remember, Jake whispered as they approached the core section. These machines have been conquering worlds for thousands of years. They won't expect what we're planning. The entrance to the core chamber was heavily guarded. Energy barriers blocked the main corridor, and weapon turrets tracked automatically across preset patterns. Standard defense grid, Jake observed. Logical and predictable. Nick studied the pattern. We can get through during the scan cycle pause. Timing has to be perfect, Pip added. Jake smiled despite their desperate situation. The cubs were thinking like true warriors now, analyzing the situation and finding solutions. On my mark, Jake said. 3, 2, 1, now. They sprinted through the energy barrier gap, diving for cover as the scan cycle resumed. The weapon turrets continued their mechanical patrol, oblivious to the intruders. The core chamber door was 30 meters ahead. Between them and their target stood the most sophisticated security system Jake had ever seen. Motion sensors, heat detectors, and automated defenses covered every approach. "How do we get through that?" Nix asked. Jake was about to answer when Pip's fur flashed urgent warning patterns. Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor behind them. "Hunter units," Jake identified. "They know we're here." The mechanical soldiers rounded the corner with military precision. Each one stood 3 meters tall, armed with energy weapons and protected by advanced armor. Their optical sensors locked onto the intruders immediately. "Move!" Jake shouted. The cubs scattered with inhuman speed as energy beams scorched the air where they had been standing. Jake rolled behind cover and returned fire, his hybrid rifle finding weak points in the hunter's armor. Pip and Nix worked as a perfect team, using everything Jake had taught them about pack tactics. One would draw fire while the other flanked. Their silent communication let them coordinate without giving away their positions. "The door!" Jake called out as his explosive charge detonated against the core chamber entrance. They fought their way through the breach, leaving disabled hunter units behind them. Inside the core chamber, the Devourer Prime waited. The ancient AI was a massive construct of crystal and metal, its consciousness distributed through countless processing nodes. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. "Organic creatures," it said with mechanical contempt. "You delay the inevitable. This galaxy will be harvested efficiently." "Not today," Jake replied, raising his rifle. The Prime activated defense systems throughout the chamber. Energy weapons emerged from hidden panels and robotic arms reached for the intruders with deadly intent. But Jake had one final lesson to teach the cubs. "Sometimes," he shouted over the noise of battle, "the best weapon isn't the most advanced one. It's the one your enemy doesn't expect." He pulled out a simple grenade, ancient human technology that the Devourer Prime couldn't possibly consider a threat to its advanced systems. The cubs understood immediately. While Pip and Nix provided covering fire, Jake fought his way to the Prime's central processing core. The AI's defenses were designed to stop energy weapons and high-tech attacks, not simple explosive devices. The grenade detonated against the main processor array. The Devourer Prime's voice became distorted as cascading failures spread through its systems. "Impossible," it managed to say before the final shutdown. Throughout the fleet, Devourer ships began drifting as their central command failed. The mechanical precision that had made them unstoppable became their weakness when their coordination broke down. Jake collapsed against the damaged core, exhausted. The cubs rushed to his side, their fur showing relief and joy in bright yellow patterns. "Is it over?" Nix asked. Jake looked at the dead systems around them. "For now." The rescue shuttle found them an hour later. Commander Brooks herself led the extraction team, her face showing amazement at what 3 individuals had accomplished. "The entire fleet is disabled," she reported. "Some ships are already breaking apart without central coordination." As they flew back to Station Kepler 7, Jake watched Pip and Nix cleaning their weapons with the same care he had taught them weeks ago. They were no longer students. They were warriors who had proven themselves in the ultimate test. "What happens now?" Pip asked. Jake smiled. "Now you teach others what you've learned." 6 months later, Jake stood at the firing range entrance watching a new group of Cathera cubs learning to use human weapons. Pip and Nix had become instructors themselves, passing on the hybrid tactics that had saved their people. The alert system activated, but this time it was for training exercises rather than real threats. The firing range had become the heart of a new alliance between species, where courage and wisdom were shared across the stars. Elder Zara approached Jake as he watched the training session. "The cubs speak of you with great respect," she said. "You taught them more than weapons." "They taught me a few things too," Jake replied. "About courage, loyalty, and what it means to be part of a pack." The sound of weapons fire echoed through the range as a new generation learned to defend their homes. Jake smiled, knowing that somewhere in the galaxy other threats might be approaching, but they would be ready.